In today's fast-paced business world, reliable logistics is key to success. That's where PC and FS Logistics come in. With a comprehensive range of services including air, sea and domestic transport, as well as secure warehousing, we've got your supply chain covered. From origin destination, our expert team ensures your goods are handled with care and delivered on time, every time.
Welcome to Football List tonight, guys. It's Football List live tonight, of course. Don't forget, we are live around Australia. Check it out right now, people. Oh, God, guys. I'm in a little square at the moment until we get our special guest to come from Italy, hopefully, and then it all becomes really good. Here we go. Check it out. Minutes. Yes, here we go right now. Check it out. Here we go. Oh, yes. Hey. The cup of life. This is the one. Now is the time. Don't ever stop. We should've known. Gotta be strong. We should've known right from the top. And when you feel the heat, the world is at your feet. No one can hold you back if you really want it, guys. I see it in your soul. You want the cup of life. Not the days here, you're gonna get it. Do you really want it? Let's do it, man. Let's party right now, everybody. Here we go. We are the people. We are the passion. We are the history. Oh boy, do I have some news for you tonight, everybody, right now. Live on Football List. Welcome, gentlemen, right now. It's our way, the highway. Kenny Taylor, Kenny Wilson from around Australia. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome to the show right now, boys. Everybody's watching tonight. Fantastic. Now, let me say, I'm on a little screen right there right now, but let me just say one little thing about this, guys. This week has been a big week in the game. They keep saying that to me. I just want to say a few little things before we start about what's going on here tonight, about the situation. I call it, we're getting little noises here, but the situation about what's happening about the second division, that second division they call it, or what to call the NSL Championship, Australian Championship. I'm really getting some noises here right now, but I'm not moving around or doing anything. So let me just say one thing about this, guys, is that everybody's trying to push the trophy around the NPL. Let me go back 20 years right now. Let me go back 20 years to all of you guys, 20 years. I just want to mention that 20 years ago, when the opportunity came, when Frank Lowy was saying to you, we have to start again, we've got to do things again, the game is not prospering in the country. And what did he do? He put these franchises. They're still there, they're still going, they're still happening. But let me say the one thing about this was that everybody at the time, you know, they were putting themselves there to say, well, okay, we'll believe you, we'll get back into we'll get back into our state leagues, and of course the Australia Cup will come. The Australia Cup comes in, of course, to basically give you more, give you some national games as well. And so that is the situation. And let me say, at that, I don't know what these noises are, gentlemen, but I tell you what, I'm not happy about it. This has never happened before. But let me just say one thing about this, everyone, is that the point I'm going to make here is when you didn't speak up at the time when he was doing this, when you should have all spoken up and said, what about our clubs? What's going to happen to our clubs? We want another competition to be in. But no, you decide to let it go, let that happen. And of course, you've just decided to say, well, now we want to do it after 20 years. The time was then. The time was then to improve all of this stuff. But now you want to do it after 20 years. Now, Kenny in Sydney, I don't know what this mess is, but we'll find out in a sec. But what I'm trying to say is also is that, Kenny, isn't it a bit too late right now to start a competition again?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure it's too late to start another competition. I think what we seem to be talking about all the time is that we want to create another competition that's linked to the A-League. And we've had the conversation a million times. There's no relegation in the A-League till 2034, which is 9 years away. That's what the franchise deal was. So if it was me, I would probably be looking at running an independent competition, if you want to call it independent, and try and make it you know, a subsidiary with nothing to do with it. Because remember, the A-League is independent. Although they've got a board member from Football Australia, it's an independently owned league. If they wanted, if the FA wanted to, They could run an independent. You want to call it another national league if you want, or a super league. They could. But we keep trying to link the two together, and it's never going to happen. Certainly not in our lifetime. In 9 years' time, we'll be getting fed through a straw.
Let me just say, and Kenny, and this is what I'm trying to say, Kenny, in Melbourne, of course. What I want to say to you is that why now? Do they have to go for it now and say, let's do this when they should have done this a long time ago and sat down with Mr. Lowy and said, no, we want our clubs back in the competition rather than being in a second, what do they call this thing, the Mickey Mouse Cup? The people are getting upset, Kenny. I'm seeing this crazy trophy being Pass the parcel. Now, Angelo's gone again. So this is what I'm trying to say, Kenny. Why do we have to put up with this sort of stuff?
Oh, look, I think it's it's actually along the lines, to a certain extent, of this thing that's happening in America. It's World Club Championship. It's just something that probably is something else that probably the game doesn't really need. I don't think at this particular time. The fact of the matter is, you've got the Australian Cup now, and obviously down in Victoria, the teams play. It's classified as the Doherty Cup till they get to a certain stage, which I think is now. I think it's 32 teams, and that's when the A-League teams come in. So I think it kind of gives that wee bit of opportunity to some of the lesser clubs as such, and not the A-League clubs. But again, it's all to do with finances. These teams, I think, and I totally agree with Kenny, what he's been saying for a long time, is that what they should have done was, or what they should do, I think, is, and this is just a personal opinion, they should actually go and get 5 or 6 more clubs and then make it an 18 competition or 20 competition in the A-League. Make it more competitive, and then you can see it's a bit more viable. And again, you get to a situation in the games, and you look at the likes of, say, Melbourne Victory, who obviously, and again, I think the game is diluted quite substantially in Australia, yes. Because the crowds are not coming. It's all said and done. You look at Melbourne Victory. They still have a decent base of supporters. Melbourne City's never had even Melbourne Heart never had a support base. Western United never had, they're not got a support base, and whether that is obviously out in the sticks as such. But look, again, I'll be honest with you, I don't even know if this competition, and okay, they've got a trophy, and again, I think I spoke to you the other day about it. They've got Commonwealth Bank behind, not just the Matildas, but obviously the Socceroos. They should go to them and actually do a proper presentation. Somewhere, I don't know what they would do, if it's in the media or something. They need to do something in that scale. But they just seem to keep shooting themselves in the foot. And again, as Kenny quite rightly mentioned, it's 2 different entities, and they just seem to be kind of clashing against each other.
Yes.
To me, it's to the detriment of Australia.
Let me just say, Angelo, we're talking here about this second-tier competition. Of course, they're calling it the Australian Championship. For God's sakes, give it a name also that means it's something to do with Australia. Give it a name like it's got to do something with the game here than to say, the Australian. What is the Australian Championship? Once again, we're failing again with naming rights and whatever. And what I did say before, I said, you clubs are you have your own problems. You started this problem when you didn't speak to Lowy at the time, and this is your problems. You didn't speak to Lowy to get some kind of outcome, to say that you guys want to be in some kind of competition, but you decided to bow down and say, okay, we'll listen to you now. But no, you didn't listen. You didn't probably do the right thing. I don't know what's happening with our system tonight, guys, but we're sort of like having a few little difficulties because of this new system. But let me just say one thing about this. Please, Angelo, people are hearing nothing about this second division or whatever it's called, the Mickey Mouse Cup or whatever. And so what's happening is people are being left behind with what's going on. People don't know. It's starting on the 10th of October. People have heard nothing. There's no advertising once more again of this sort of game in Australia, Angelo.
Yeah. Well, one of the problems, there's a lot of uncertainty because it is called the Australian Championships, and I've got to tell you, I love the ad. I think the advertisement is fantastic. It's like the A-League. It's right up there with all the high standards, and they selected 8 teams, as we all know, and then they're going to invite another 8 teams. Now, you guys know that I'm pretty close to Adelaide City. And they're one of the invitees. But what I'm getting to is the money. We've always talked about finance, and some of these NPL clubs, they're really unaware of the money they've got to put in, because they actually paid $500,000, something like $500,000 to apply, and also deliver the criteria, deliver the document. They've done that, but the big uncertainty and the big question mark is, where are they going to get the money from to fly into Sydney and to Melbourne? We don't know about Perth, but there is cost. And my view of being involved at Adelaide United and being the CEO there, all the finances came through me. And can I tell you that I believe it will cost minimum $2.5 to $3 million. Okay? There is absolutely no way that you can avoid that sort of cost. If somebody came up to me and said, look, we only have to come up with $1 million, that's porky pies. There's absolutely no way that you can fund a competition of such. And then the other thing I want to say quickly, what are the clubs going to get for it? Apart from the crowds not getting up, we know that. The crowds, they're not going to get 5,000 to 10,000 unless you're playing Preston versus South Melbourne, But that's not going to be the case, So I think the only thing James Johnson said, that the winner may be able to qualify for the World Club Championship or the Asia Champions League.
What's interesting, we've had the Adelaide City president on twice.
Yes.
And the criteria is quite clearly marked that it's supposed to be the champions of South Australia. Adelaide City are currently running third or fourth. So they've not got, so at the moment, regardless of, they're not getting invited in, they've got to try and win it first. Now, the only chance they're going to have of getting in is if they win it, they'll get an automatic invite. If they don't win it, and the team that wins it doesn't want to go in, then they'll offer the second team, then the third team, then the fourth team. And that's where the problems start. It's embarrassing, to be honest, but that's another conversation for another night.
Whereas Kenny, the criteria should be that Adelaide City have won 3 times an NSL title. They've won 3 times the NSL Cup. Like FIFA do with this World Club Championship, it's with points. The accumulation of points, like Juventus. For example, Juventus haven't won a title for 5 years.
Well, keep in mind, Adelaide City did put in an application for this, what was going to be the second division, and they got knocked back on the criteria of seeding and lighting. That's what they got knocked back on. They actually get knocked back on it. Straight from the president's mouth.
Yeah, the clubs
if you notice, Kenny, that they haven't called it the second division. No, they used to call it the second tier competition. Now they've called it the Australian Championship, because it doesn't run parallel to the A-League, where there's no promotion relegation. Of course, we know that. That's the only reason why you would call it the second division. But you can't call it that. What they've done is named it the Australian Championship. It's just a tournament which lasts about
3 months,
12 weeks.
3 months. 3 months.
We've just saw that at the moment, Football Australia has just advertised the post for, call it the second division or another competition, for someone, a general manager or whatever you want to call it, to find funding, commercial, to find funding. They haven't got anything yet. It's July, and the comp's supposed to start in October. Really?
The thing is, the problem here is the fact that if you look at the NPL teams, they're actually struggling in the NPL, whether it be, I'm sure, in Sydney, and I'm sure definitely down here in Melbourne. So for them, obviously, if those figures are right, Angelo, I'm sure they are. They're in a situation of saying there's no way in the world that unless they get some rich person to come in who's obviously got plenty of money and is happy to lose plenty of money, because nobody makes any money with a football club. That's given. So you're in a situation of saying, and I know like with Heidelberg, they looked at it initially, and they obviously they wanted more information. Obviously, it wasn't forthcoming because there's been no information. There's been just such a lack of it, and again, there's a fine line between having no communication and too much communication. But I suppose some communication is better than none. And there's a situation where they just say, "Well, no, we need more information." Obviously, they didn't go ahead with it. But again, running the team to try and get them interstate. You know, I remember, you know, in Kerry was the same thing. In 77, you're travelling to Adelaide and Sydney and Newcastle and Brisbane and stuff like that. So again, in those days, I'm subsidies by the airlines and so forth. It may be the same thing again, but again, the costs have just gone through the roof now. We don't really think it's a political thing to, but obviously the fact of the matter now is that oil is going to be ridiculous price in the next month. So to fly anywhere, it's just going to cost you an absolute arm and a leg. So I just don't think it's viable. That's what it's all about.
Who's going to fund the 10 or 11 weeks' wages for all the players?
Kenny, you heard that. Kenny, you heard that from the president of Adelaide City. Remember what he said? They're funding everything, the air, the airplane flights. No. Are you sure?
The FA did say they were going to fund the travel. But as Angelo said, it's not just travel. What about the hotels? What about the food? What about the wages? What about, you know? So, look, it wouldn't surprise me for FA to throw some money into the kitty to cover the airfares. But as Angelo says, you know, you're going to have to get an Adelaide team to Perth, a Perth team to Melbourne, a Sydney team to Perth. You know, I mean, that's $600 or $700 return. And you've got to take at least 20. You know, that's with physios and, you know, and, you know, whatever. It's a 20-man squad. So then you've got, you know,
support
potentially 20 rooms in a hotel. And Angelo's spot on. $2 or $3 million is probably on the money.
In today's fast-paced business world, reliable logistics is key to success. That's where PC and FS Logistics come in. With a comprehensive range of services including air, sea and domestic transport, as well as secure warehousing, we've got your supply chain covered. From origin destination, our expert team ensures your goods are handled with care and delivered on time, every time. Do you have what it takes to become a soccer superstar? Look no further than Soccer Pro Academy. Led by experienced coaches, including a former Socceroo, the Academy provides world-class training to help you reach your full potential. From technical skills to tactical awareness, they'll help you develop the skills and mindset needed to succeed at the highest level. Soccer Pro Academy, where champions are made.
Are you looking for the perfect kit for your football club? Try Arrow Sport today. From jerseys to shorts to socks, Arrow Sport will have you completely covered. We can even cover your merchandising line, including hats, beanies, scarves, jumpers, and so much more. So if you're looking for excellent lead times, great pricing, and even better quality, try Arrow Sport today by looking at our website at arrowsport.com.au. And even better quality, try Arrow Sport today by looking at our website at arrowsport.com.au.
Looking for a haven to unwind and indulge? Look no further than Brista Cafe, nestled in the heart of Derrimut Village Shopping Centre. From decadent homemade gourmet cookies to scrumptious muffins, every bite is a delight. Everyone loves Brista Cafe, and you will too. So why wait? Visit Brista Cafe today and taste the difference for yourself.
Hi guys, Harry Sundai here, letting you know that there's a apparel company that supports the game that you love. It's called ThereIsOnlyOneFootball.com, guys. They've got all sorts of stuff, from caps, t-shirts, water bottles, all sorts of accessories, even for your mobile phone.
In today's fast-paced business world, reliable logistics is key to success. That's where PC and FS Logistics come in. With a comprehensive range of services including air, sea and domestic transport, as well as secure warehousing, we've got your supply chain covered. From origin destination, our expert team ensures your goods are handled with care and delivered on time, every time.
So this is where this is where I couldn't understand before you guys come on again. This is what I couldn't understand the other day. Once more again, throwing that trophy around the NPL Victoria, if they were smart enough to take it to New South Wales, take it elsewhere. Don't leave it around the NPL Victoria. I mean, this is, Kenny, from Melbourne, you saw what's going on. To me, it's embarrassing throwing it around like it's some kind of pass the parcel, some kind of joke.
Well, the thing is, if the powers that be were actually serious, they would actually do a proper launch.
Exactly.
And obviously that's not... It was like... It's almost as if it was like a second thought. You know, we've got this trophy. Now, where they've got it from... Might have got it from Stevie Blair's, because he used to sell trophies.
Yes.
But maybe they've got the trophy, we need to do something about it. And it's like they've kind of brainstormed it. And obviously the meeting went only for 15 minutes. They just decided to go and do that. Whereas... And again, I keep getting returned back to the Commonwealth Bank now. They should be going back to them and saying, right, you support, you get behind the Matildas, and again, okay, you can say that when the Matildas play, it's just a friendly, they get 30, 40,000, which is fantastic. But you're in a situation where, why don't you do a proper launch in Sydney, even in Adelaide? It doesn't really matter what it is, but do it and really promote it heavily. But that's not the case, because it's just like a ghost tournament. It's like as if it's never going to happen. Like people are just talking about it. It's just nothing's going to come to fruition. But again,
you've got the two. I mean, it's ironic that the two clubs that are probably the flagship waivers for this competition is Preston and South Melbourne, and that's why the trophy's getting passed between them. They haven't brought up to Sydney because none of the Sydney clubs really know what's happening.
They maybe funded it. Maybe they funded the trophy. Maybe
it wouldn't surprise me, at least. Wouldn't surprise me.
It weighs a ton. And I think you might have seen that was carried by the two presidents at Lakeside Oval 2 weeks ago. I couldn't believe it. Is it that heavy? So whichever team wins it, you're going to need about 3 players to carry it, Kenny. 3 players to carry it. Oh God.
Yeah. The comp's got to get started first. It's going to be a very interesting concept, is what Angelo was saying earlier on. We'll get currently 8 teams, we think. That's allowing for a couple of the teams that we think might not even finish the season up here in Sydney that are struggling. I would suspect that it'll turn into a real shamash of who the other 8 teams are going to be, and then the draw, because the draw is going to be dictated. The travel is going to be dictated by the draw, right? Say, for example, we don't get a South Australian team. Well, I mean, I know Adelaide City want to be in, but say we don't get a Gold Coast team, and they were already earmarked. So how can we possibly book flights and accommodation when we've got to wait till at least the 24th of August for the end of the NPL to see who wins the competitions before the invite goes out? Because most of the NPL comps go to the wire. The last 2 games, there's a point in it, there's 2 points in it. So it could go either way. It certainly does in Sydney anyway. But it'll be an interesting couple of months, I think. And it's great. I mean, remember Commonwealth Bank had the Socceroos originally. This is a return. And it always should have been. I mean, I don't know why we lost them. And Matilda's got them and they never. But it's great to see them back. At least we've got the prestige now back with our elite team, which is the Socceroos. And that's no disrespect to the Matildas.
The only thing that's quite ironic, as you said, it did happen before or previously, but it's quite ironic that obviously the soccer have qualified for World Cup now. So again, it's one of these things where people want to be associated with winners, and people want to be associated with big events, which obviously the World Cup's the biggest event in the world. So you'd be
It was interesting, Kenny. The last time we qualified for the World Cup and we ended up with Subway, that there was no takers. I mean, we had qualified for the World Cup then too. It's very interesting that whoever was pitching at that time.
That's the other thing.
That's the issue, I think.
Whoever was pitching before the last World Cup is not working for the FA or whoever it is now, because as I say, they tend to kind of move on a wee bit. It's obviously like to get something on the CV and then move on somewhere. So there's always.
I think someone's done something right. As far as look, I was one of the first ones to applaud, and I think you guys as well, when the Commonwealth Bank deal was changed, and the actually for betterment of the in terms of finance. I think to catch up the FA. I think I applauded everybody there because, you know, the Commonwealth Bank have been one of the most interested, I think, in the game, but not just the midfielders. And I think that this is where we need to get better. We need to do better. You know, as far as now advertising for a commercial director, you know, to look after the finances and maybe procure more sponsors, more international sponsors. I think that the Socceroos right now, you know, are in a perfect position to get more sponsors because they're guaranteed of participating in the next World Cup. They're going to showcase the brand positioning to the world, and I think that hopefully there'll be some more good news. You know, I think that the FA is working good. You know, a lot of the times we've been sort of been objective, not criticising, because we love the game. I mean, you know, anybody that hears us talk on the show, it's not about criticism. It's about constructive criticism for betterment. And I think right now I applaud the FA. I applaud the FA for procuring the sponsor and upgrading with the Commonwealth Bank. Right now, don't be surprised if we get more news, you know, with other big sponsors, multinationals. Well, you know, obviously the Matildas have appointed a new coach. The Socceroos have qualified. So the game is in a healthy position. I mean, you know, we don't want to talk about the A-League and the you know, like the Women's League, obviously the national competition, and there's also the fact that we're talking about the Australian Championship now. But other than that, the Socceroos and the Matildas are always there.
I have a scoop for you guys right now. This has come through. I've got a massive scoop here. I think it's my microphone's playing up in some way, but I'll try and do what I can. I just found a journalist sending me information here right now. Very, very damaging to the game, to the A-League. I'm not going to go any further. I'll just say exactly what's here. New Western United owners found unfit by the Australian professional leagues. So there you go. There's no owners for Western United. There you go.
Yeah, I think that's been brewing for a while. I think, you know, there's been things in the press, you know, and unfortunately or fortunately, there's not been a lot of it. But obviously, there's been a word about that. You know, things aren't good over there, sort of thing. So again, we're all experts in hindsight. I would have when they put the tender in initially. I know it was Vince Grell. I think it was behind it. I think the Dandenong area would have been a better.
Yes.
The area Cranbourne, because obviously population and so forth is great. You go to would have gone to. It's obviously, and I've never been to the ground, so I'm saying I know you've been there, Harry, in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, God help me! God help me! You can get lost very easy. There's not very hard to get there. Very hard.
There was a million options. You know, they shouldn't have given up the Gold Coast. We should have punched on with Tasmania. We should look at Townsville. You know, they should have looked at obviously Wollongong. We had so many other better options than Western United. Yeah. I just beyond me. I don't know why they went that way.
What they should have done with the Gold Coast was obviously the guy who owned it, and obviously
Clive Palmer.
Clive Palmer. His nose was out of joint with somebody, and he's turned into 5,000 people in because he could do that because he's obviously got plenty of money behind him. Somehow they should get the license off him, as you say, give it to somebody who's a football person, football people, and obviously kept the thing going because, you know, that's obviously a fairly good area for football. And
massive growth, Kenny. Gold Coast, the hinterland, all that area, if you go there, you know, right up to you getting towards Brisbane, it's just all housing, homes, it's affordable living over there. People can afford move from Sydney to Melbourne, from Melbourne to there, and the climate's great, you know. And Tasmania needs to get a crack. You know, I mean, we've done well in New Zealand. We've done well with New Zealand. New Zealand's done well. Auckland's done fantastic. I'm quite sure that Tasmania would, on the proviso they get the right people to run the club and the right funding, would go okay. Would go well. I've got no doubt about it. But I keep going back what you said earlier on. We can fix the A-League short term. Drop another 4 or 5 teams in from the Marconis, the Olympics, the South Melbourne.
Kenny, what I've heard, Kenny, from the APL and some people down there, which I've been doing some research, they don't want the clubs. They don't want them. Full stop. They don't want them, Kenny.
Yeah, but But they're going to lose 4 anyway, mate.
They won't bite the bullet.
United.
They won't bite the bullet.
Brisbane. They're going to lose possibly MacArthur. There's 3. They're going to. I mean, if it's not today, it's next week or it's next month. But what I will tell you, the A-League structure as it currently sits will not last as long as what the NSL did.
Exactly.
In a pink fit.
Exactly.
I mean, Newcastle, I mean, the best team that we had for the last 2 seasons, which is Central Coast Mariners, they've got no money.
And they worked out all right. And worked that one out. So, look,
they've got no money, mate. They can't compete anymore. They won everything. They won everything, and they had to let players go, staff go,
Brian,
to try and get it to a budget.
Their captain's gone. He's gone to. He's playing in Perth. Brian Kaltak. He's gone. The Solomon Islands player, an international. He's gone. He's gone over there. So they're losing a lot of players. There's no money. There's no money.
The coaches. Hey, Jackson's gone. They've all gone.
They're all gone
because the funding's not there. I mean, how many times do we need to get hit over the head by a cricket bat to say that it's not working financially? And that's not being negative. It's the truth.
Kenny,
it's fact.
Kenny.
In today's fast-paced business world, reliable logistics is key to success. That's where PC and FS Logistics come in. With a comprehensive range of services including air, sea and domestic transport, as well as secure warehousing, we've got your supply chain covered. From origin destination, our expert team ensures your goods are handled with care and delivered on time, every time.
You and I know that you're talking about the NSL, from the Phillips League right through to the NSL, right to the end of it, that there was no professionalism whatsoever in paying people that were coming there to help the clubs. Volunteers helping. That's why it lasted so long, Kenny. These guys want money everywhere. No matter who's there, they want money here. They want money there. They want to start a professional league in the country. 20 years on, we've got trouble, Kenny.
That's a fact of life, man. That's everywhere.
Yeah, Harry, with any entity, there's a question of finance. We all know that. Now, the A-League from 2003, okay, to me, it was a fantastic competition of having 8 teams and then carefully selected teams to come in. Western United, going on to what Kenny was saying, Western United, and the other one was
MacArthur.
I think it is.
MacArthur.
Yeah, MacArthur, yeah. Well, look, MacArthur, I mean, there is no sample of the catchment of the interest. I really don't know how those 2 teams got approved. Now, I'll bring back that point that I made, Harry, at one stage with Western United. They actually won the league. Kenny mentioned about Central Coast Mariners winning. And then, let's go back to Western United. Western United won it. And when is the time? That's the best time when you got to increase your membership, sponsorship, fan base, because when you win, everyone wants to be part of it. But of course, what's happened? The team and the club did not maximise the opportunity of winning.
Exactly.
What happened to Adelaide United? Adelaide United won the league. The following year, they handed in the licence. How does it work? Like, when you win, you're supposed to get more sponsors, more commercially driven. You're supposed to have a better fan base, a better membership. And I think that this is where you need to analyse the league and say, when they win, and they win the Asia Champions League as well, like Central Coast and Western Sydney did so very well with Tony Popovich, what happens to these teams? What, do they have a commercial department where they go out and get more sponsors and more money?
No.
This is where I really don't understand, because we can understand a team that finishes bottom, but a team that actually wins the A-League and wins the Asia Champions League, and the following year they've got a problem with finance, I don't understand it.
When the club, for example, Western United, ignores the population caption that they have, which is Indian,
yes,
and they totally ignore it and don't pitch it. Yeah. It's a recipe for disaster. Absolute recipe for disaster.
The thing is, what should have done is affiliation with a cricket club.
Yeah,
I've said that before, Kenny. I've said that before. Sachin Tendulkar, bring him over here. Bring his soccer team over here. Bring them from the Indian professional league, the Indian Super League. I've said it many times. He owns a soccer team. Bring him here with them to play Western United. You know how many people would turn up to that? My God, they've got no idea. They've no idea, Kenny. Nothing.
Well, Harry and Kenny, what you're talking about is commercial sense. Commercial sense. The AFL, the rugby league, they do it very well.
Oh, yes.
Okay? Now, you just mentioned, Harry, what you were talking about and Kenny was talking about are marketing strategies that are free. They are free because the population is there. You've identified what you've got in that area, the catchment, like I was saying before. So you need to create a fan base. I mean, with Adelaide United, the Highmarsh Stadium holds 20,000 now. When they moved the games to Adelaide Oval, they got 52,000. Now, how do you think they actually got 52,000? There's not 52,000 members of Adelaide, okay? They've got about 8,000 members. But you know what they did was what Kenny was saying before. They actually created a dual membership with the Cricket Association of Adelaide Oval. Because the cricket's played there, and through Venutix, the ticketing company, the ticketing giant, they offered a one ticket and one free to the Cricket Association. Now, what this show, a lot of people criticise this show and they say this and that, but we also offer free information and some information, perhaps some marketing ideas that we don't see done. We don't see any association or any club taking the step forward, and maybe just opening up a little bit with the marketing ideas. And look, I don't know if they've got a marketing department. If they do have, here's some free ideas. I think the other thing as well, if you look at, I'm probably not ready for that, but you look at Europe, for instance, right, you've got Real Madrid, you've got Barcelona, you've got all these teams have got affiliations with basketball. They've got the basketball side of the business, they've got the football side of the business. Now, again, we're talking about the elite touch, but, as I say, if they can get an affiliation, what happened here with I don't know, it was the NSL, yeah, but they did the thing down here in Melbourne, certainly in Victoria, with Collingwood, the Collingwood Warriors, Heidelberg. They did the Carlton Blues.
Yes.
So they did the AFL teams or the VFL teams. But the thing is, it just didn't work. I mean, they tried. They would get all the die-hard AFL support come to us at some game. But what they don't realise, and even I played in none of Wadding, and all the kids that played with whether it's Croatian background, Italian or Greek, whatever, it doesn't matter what background, they were born here, and they all supported Collingwood, but they played football. The football wasn't their first love as such. So to get these kids into supporting these teams, and it was a bit like a damp squid, and then obviously they had to try and do something else. The other thing, just very quickly with Frank Lowy, I think that his goal more than anything else was World Cup, and
that's what it was.
And he obviously lost a lot of money.
Yes.
He didn't lose a lot of money. He could afford to lose a lot of money. But the fact of the matter was that was gold. His goal was to get the World Cup in Australia, and obviously didn't it?
When we lost Frank Stephen, we lost that elite credibility, didn't we? We had two men at Football Australia or FFA who had worldwide contacts everywhere for sponsorships, elite stuff. We're talking elite. And as Stephen said, be careful what you wish for when they got sort of ousted, really, didn't they?
Yes.
They got hounded in the game, which was one that you liked, Frank Lowy, because obviously Frank wasn't liked because he withdrew Sydney Hakoa from the NSL or whatever you want to call it at the time, and he withdrew them literally overnight. Sydney City. Obviously, that had a stigma to it, but that was partly because of his frustration about how the competition was getting on and what was happening and how much money they were losing every year. And at the bottom line, we get to a stage in in football and all these clubs that we run out of benefactors. All these clubs, Newcastle's has about 3 or 4 ran out of benefactors. Central Coast, pretty much, Charlesworth has said enough is enough. I'm not funding the 2 or 3 million shortfall, so cut the budget. And that's what's happened. And they're not successful anymore. Western United, obviously, we've got an issue in Sydney with MacArthur, who are threatening to sue the FA for misrepresentation, which will never go anywhere. But the reality is, it's lack of funding. Yeah. And we've always said we've got to a point where can we really fund a full-time professional league? That's the question we've got to ask.
Kenny, I'll tell you one thing about this to everyone tonight as well, that the Auckland owner, is very upset right now. He's very upset. Very upset. He's very upset about the league. He's very upset about it too. Very upset. He could pull out. He could pull out right now. There's no benefit for them being there. If the rest have got no money and he's got money to put in there, what sort of competition have we got then? We got a weaker teams in Australia and one strong team in New Zealand. How does that work, Angelo?
Well, look, Melbourne Victory have actually got a new partner. He's not a major shareholder.
No, he's not.
From Crystal Palace, Tony Bloom, and they're looking at perhaps other commercial partners. But the only teams, if we ever look at clubs in a competition that are financially sound, is Melbourne City and Auckland. Okay, all of the other teams are bleeding. I mean, Adelaide's done well because they've sold a couple of players. And as you know, we sold Craig Goodwin pretty well in Saudi Arabia. Then we sold in Nakunda, and I think that's good finance. That's good financial now. So I think to do that. But most of the clubs in the competition right now, they are suffering badly. And I think what Kenny was saying before about Frank Lowy, the Frank and his son,
Stephen,
they were actually running the competition like a business, which it always should be. And when we first started the competition, with 8 teams, everybody balanced the books. At the end of the year, there was no major financial losses. Then we increased it to 10 teams, no financial losses. There would be very few teams to have 500,000, 1 million maybe, which is bearable, and you can actually deal with that. But I think at the end of the day, gentlemen, we need a good governance starting from the top. And I think, look, Heather Garrick should know that now stepping into the CEO position, there's a lot of responsibility. The FA, also. The fact that the major problem, Kenny, is the fact that when they actually sold the competition to the clubs, the APL, the Australian Premier League, that should not be the governing body for the competition. I mean,
shouldn't have been.
You look at other competitions around the world. I mean, where did they get these ideas from? That the clubs, when we lost 140 million. I think the clubs they'd be the first to put their hand up and say it was the clubs that wanted more cut of the slice of the cake, and the 140 million disappeared within 2 years. So what I'm saying at the end of the day, the clubs cannot run the competition.
They can't.
Okay? This is one of the major problems.
This question, Andrew, you said that obviously I would a question that obviously they're part of the worldwide, but games are good. Melbourne didn't get a crowd now, and obviously that's in the last couple of seasons. Definitely that, and I just think it's a write-off for whether it's PSG, all these other Manchester City, because there's nobody in the world that make any money that
we're losing again.
It's just a you got it?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I think we go back to Messenger next week, mate.
I think we're going back to Messenger, that's for sure. But let me just say one thing about this, guys. is that I just want to change something right now.
Mate, if not, you can get Marcel Marceau on.
Mate, it's let me just say I'm trying everything I can do. I'll tell you what, but the thing is, let me say about the next.
Mate, do you know sign language?
Yeah, hang on. There you go. I've done it. There you go.
In today's fast-paced business world, reliable logistics is key to success. That's where PC and FS Logistics come in. With a comprehensive range of services including air, sea and domestic transport, as well as secure warehousing, we've got your supply chain covered. From origin destination, our expert team ensures your goods are handled with care and delivered on time, every time.
Let me just say, Adelaide United are in crisis. I'm sorry to say that, Angelo, Adelaide United are in crisis with this Travis Dodd situation. He's opened up his mouth. He's not happy. I think because of the he's not there anymore either, so he's opened up his mouth that Carl Viet was actually pushed out rather than left. They wanted someone else in there. I mean, a lot of the players are, and now that Craig Goodwin's come back as well, how does that fit in?
Now, I've got to say something about Adelaide just quickly, and I'll let because Angelo will know more about it. I mean, I think Carl Viet was very similar to what's happened to Ange. I thought he did a fantastic job at Adelaide. And it was only towards the end of the season. I reflect, how I look at Adelaide. You look at the Australian team, the under-21s and the under-19s, how many South Australian players are in the Australian teams. And I've never seen so many Adelaide players in my entire life. There's so many, and he was going great guns. And I don't think he got the support. I think it's a very Ange type situation. I think he's been very harshly done by, in my opinion.
He has.
I think, Kenny, they're giving all the credit to Anthony Andrioli, who was the coach of the youth development squad. But I think that you would know, gentlemen, all of you would know that the fact that if you're a coach or manager of a squad, then you've got to know how to utilise those players in the right positions and bring them on and off and all that sort of thing. So Carl did a tremendous job. I agree with Kenny 100%. And the fact that we must say that, and I don't care who calls and makes a comment here, but at the end of the day, you cannot run a club like that. No. That is absolutely worse than amateur league. When you go and organise a meeting with the senators of the club, they're so-called the senior players, the pillars of the club, and you go and have a coffee with them and saying, can you guys organise and pick the team behind Carl Viet's back? And I think that I know that Travis Dodd brought this out, but now that we know, that is absolutely the worst. Exactly. That is not a way to run an A-League club. I think Adelaide will get a lot of criticism on this, and they need to get a couple of bats, as we say in cricket, to defend themselves, because it's a very, very scathing accusation. Okay, and obviously for Travis Dodd to make it public, go on Channel 10, there's got to be some truth in it. So it's a terrible information to share. I think it's absolutely atrocious.
Let me say,
when you think Adelaide, when you look at their crowds, keeping in mind that they don't have any local derbies, their crowds, from that perspective, they're one of the success stories. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. Their crowds, which are predominantly just Adelaide fans. You'll get the odd Melbourne Victory fans travelling, but predominantly that crowd base that they've built up for the population of Adelaide is, I think, fantastic. But it's gone. I think Kenny, what you're saying is that the way the fans perceive the club, South Australian driven, okay, they feel intimate about the team. The perception is fantastic because, as I say, like Hindmarsh now holds 20,000, I think, maybe just over 20,000 with the upgrade on the eastern stands, and Adelaide, they're one of the 2 or 3 teams that were holding their crowd, and to do this sort of thing behind the coach's back, I think it's probably limit people that want to go to Adelaide.
They're going to be loaded.
I think if you connect back and again, goes to go for.
Kenny, listen to the signal there. Oh boy!
It was obviously the West Adelaide. When you think back, Adelaide was Italian. Irrespective of it, and obviously we were. So, we played. It was probably a stronger crowd at Hindmarsh. Well, they used to get a good as well. So what they've done is they've it's the one team town. And another thing you've got to kind of is obviously Carl Veer. What he did it. Had to do it because of that. He's got a lot of young players through. They obviously got some back again. Reinvested into the policy, and also they've got the. If you look at Victoria, you've the Melbourne Victory team of 21. They play the NP.
Kenny, we're going to have to stop you there, Kenny. We're losing your signal for some reason. I don't know what it is, but we're going to.
Harry, another thing I wanted to say, Harry, is that if I was a commercial person or a multinational company, and I'm not being biased here, if there was one club that I would buy, it would be Adelaide. Yeah, with one team town, great response from the crowd. They've done a great job to Australianise the game. I'm not sure what Kenny was saying before, but Australianise in the sense that Croatians, the Greek community, all of the Italian community, all of the communities are united in supporting this club.
Exactly.
Yeah, multinational. So I think if I was an investor, outside of Australia and wanting to buy a club, it would be Adelaide.
Okay. I want to go to the next. Now, this is very new to us. It hasn't been going for a long time, and I'm sure Kenny, the two Kennys, would know this. They've brought back the Socceroos versus New Zealand for the Soccer Ashes. The Soccer Ashes many years ago when they started here, they brought them back again. Australia have actually won the first one that they did a few years back, of course, in England. That was last year or the year before. And now actually they're going to be playing here. And I can't believe this. This is the problem that I face here as well. Why are they doing this in Canberra? Why are they playing the game in Canberra in the middle of nowhere? And of course, the return match is in Auckland. I mean, that's ridiculous. Kenny from Sydney, I mean, that's ridiculous to play it in Canberra. Wouldn't you go to Sydney to watch it rather, and even in Melbourne, something like that, in a bigger city? Why Canberra? At this time of the year, how cold it is?
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand a lot of things that are happening. Wrexham coming, and I don't get. And as much as I admire Wrexham and what they've done, I don't see them as a huge drawing power for anyone in Australia to go and watch them. Yeah, I mean, I don't know many Welsh people over here, but I don't understand that at all. I definitely never understood Football Australia taking the Socceroos for World Cup games to the Gold Coast on a pitch we've never played before.
Same thing as Canberra.
These things, and then we did it, we also did it, I think, in Adelaide. I don't get taking away home advantage. When I mean home advantage, a pitch where our players, our international players, are used to playing on, and taking them to a pitch that they've never played on. I don't understand that at all. Regardless of promotion and trying to get more people to come in the game, that's not the time to be doing it. You don't do it for World Cup qualifiers. Not quite sure what the status will be for this Australian Ashes, whether there's money at stake and it's a big trophy. I don't mind.
There is a trophy series.
I don't mind New Zealand, Australia, like I suppose state of origin style. I don't mind that because it was always good. I mean, Australia against New Zealand were always very competitive, and it was always good watching.
Fiery, so all fiery games they were in the past. Very fiery.
I don't mind it, but I certainly wouldn't be taking it. I don't think I'll be taking it to Canberra.
That's ridiculous.
And that's no disrespect to Canberra.
It's on the 5th of September, it's in Canberra, and then the return game is on the 9th of September in Auckland. I mean, at least the New Zealanders are looking at of course, they're going to a bigger stadium, a bigger ground. They're going to a main city. That's the point.
Is that an international break that week?
It has to be. It has to be an international break if these guys are playing. It has to be. There's no other way about it. So
you would think that,
but
okay.
So now, Kenny,
I don't know if that is.
Kenny, you're there. Kenny from Melbourne. Let's see if this works this time. Now, you must have seen those old games years ago. Of course, New Zealand, Australia. They were very fiery. These tests, they call them the soccer test. And apparently, how they ended up with the soccer ashes. The soccer ashes were in 1915. How it started, I found out today that the two captains, the New Zealand captain and of course the New Zealand captain, Australian captain, were both smoking cigars, and that's how they got the ashes in one little thing, and they put them in a trophy, just like the cricket ashes from the stumps that they had. So, Kenny, this is the trophy that you're going to show, these ashes from cigars? Really?
Look, I think the rivalry between, obviously, both countries are obviously goes through all sport.
Yes.
But, you name it, sort of thing. And obviously, the players that represented New Zealand, obviously in Australia, Richard Wilson, from South Melbourne, and a few others. But in a situation where I think, well, to me, it's good. The only negative side is that it's Amy's in Melbourne, which 25th last night. You'll get a lot of the games, I respect.
Yeah. Kenny, we're losing you again. I'm sorry, Kenny. We're losing you. I don't know what the signals are like tonight on your side, but the other boys are fine at the moment. But the thing is, Angelo, the problem with this the Ashes series for the soccer, I mean, they tried to bring that back and sort of like look at it like an Australian series between England and Australia.
Well, the thing that I can't understand is why they call it the Ashes, because with cricket, at least they burnt the bails.
That's right.
Right? Of the tongue. They burnt the bails and then they put them into an ash. I don't understand the thing about the cigar. The cigar bit. They could have actually, I don't know, changed the name. Maybe you've got to burn the soccer ball, the round ball.
Exactly.
Not the cigar. I mean, it's ridiculous. But look, it is a good thing in terms of marketing. And you mentioned before about the first game being in Canberra. In terms of marketing, I'd love to know that they are publicising it and they're saying, yeah, one game in Canberra, one in Auckland, but they're not saying why Canberra. Why is it Canberra? And like you said, Harry, Melbourne is the sports world, the centre of the sport in Australia, and also Sydney, I really don't know whether they really want to attract a large crowd or whether they want to just try out, promote it in Canberra, because maybe Canberra is going to be the next team coming into the A-League. I don't know.
There's no money. Kenny, there is no money in Canberra. Kenny from Kenny Wilson, there's no money in Canberra.
Well, mate, Canberra's always had a transient population, mate. Come Friday morning, there's about 15% of Canberra politicians head back to Melbourne, Sydney, wherever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always been like that. Canberra, we don't seem to accept the fact. I get it, we want to grow the game. I understand that concept. But at some stage, we've got to acknowledge that the capital football places in our country are Sydney and Melbourne.
Yes.
Wembley's the capital in London. Hampden is the capital in Scotland. San Siro is probably Italy. Nou Camp. And it's accepted that if your team makes the finals, you travel to these places. Worldwide, it's never questioned. I mean, the AFL don't question it when they come and play in Melbourne. If the team's the Perth team or the Brisbane team or the Sydney team, the grand final's always Melbourne. The rugby league is always Sydney, regardless of who's done it.
It's right.
Always Sydney, and everyone travels. No one complains. It's an end of season. It's a weekend, and people make the weekend of it. We fight against that for some reason. I keep saying it. We've got too many fair weather supporters. They only want to go to home games. They don't want to travel. I said to you about Sydney FC, 14,000, 15,000 average supporters every week. They've got to go 45 minutes up the freeway to the Central Coast Mariners. The Mariners were top of the league. Sydney FC were third. They got 600 travelled out of 15,000. That is indicative. Newcastle, 12,500 members. 12,500 members. They're playing 25, 30 minutes down the road at Central Coast Mariners, and they got 1,800. Makes no sense to me. You know, well, it makes sense because I really believe we have a mentality that the supporters only go to home games. They don't want to travel.
No, exactly.
But I think, Kenny, I think that you and I shared this once, offline. We often talk about that. Now, for example, I'd just like to give an example, just for the sake of it. Adelaide City, for example, Adelaide United, taking the fans interstate, all you need to do, and it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. Right? Look, at anybody that wants to challenge me, you get a sponsor for the buses. Okay? We had Coach Lines of Australia. Coach Lines of Australia with a sponsor, provided 5 buses. And then all of a sudden, we needed 12 buses because it was free of charge. Okay? Now, you can deal with the fans and say, listen, I'll buy you the bus ticket, but you have to buy the ticket at the ground at half price or something like that. I'm just talking about commercial negotiation. I'm talking about promotions. I'm talking about marketing, okay? You don't need, the club does not have to pay for the buses. Right? Kenny, what Kenny's saying is absolutely spot on. We don't get many fans that travel, for any of the clubs. And I think that's where you need to work, in terms of sponsorship, a bus company. They would love to get promotion on television. They would love to get promotion travelling from Melbourne to Sydney, or from Adelaide to Melbourne, vice versa, and so on. I think that there is so much that can be done, and even though post-COVID, all over the world we've had a financial crisis, okay? Yeah. But people chip in and people love the game. Look at the Matildas, for example, in terms of maybe helping the A-League get better crowds. We've got 2.7 million people that are interested in the Matildas. They tell us because, we've seen the television ratings that smashed all records since the television was born in 1959. No sporting organisation, no TV show has actually surpassed the Matildas. And what am I trying to say? That some of those A-League clubs, they need to sample those fans. Yes, they love Matildas, but they also love the game.
It's always been the case. At the end of the day, if
there's no game, there's no round ball, there's no Matildas.
Angelo, you're making a great point. The Women's A-League should be played before the Men's A-League. They should play it at 1 o'clock or 1 o'clock.
Curtain raising.
Then 3 o'clock for the men. And you consolidate. Well, that's what you should be doing.
Exactly.
But, Kenny, it's a summer sport. And, you guys got me going now because that's my passion, marketing and trying to better the game and trying to get a sponsor and trying to get people behind the game, the commercial side of things. I mean, you look at FIFA, for example, they actually noted that the crowds weren't there. They weren't going to get big crowds. What do? Doesn't matter that they dropped the price on the ticket. People have to go. They went to the universities of each of the states. So why is it that the A-League and the A-League teams and the clubs are not proactive and do this sort of thing so that we get better crowds? I mean, I think that the clubs deserve better crowds, but then again, I've got to say that I don't think the clubs do enough. We always talk about the FA, we always talk about the APL, but at the end of the day, I can tell you guys that Adelaide United, at least when I was involved, I think they still do it, they are very, very good at creating affinity with the community, with the football community. There's the amateur league. There's the amateur league. There's thousands and thousands of players.
Angelo, I can tell you 2 years ago, and I was actually in I think something with my system tonight. But anyway, look, when I was at Melbourne Victory, and I went to a little meeting, and I saw the APL people, and they said to me, Harry, it's good that you do stuff with the community and community clubs. We don't do enough. We don't do enough. Really? So they don't do enough. There you go, Angelo. Unbelievable.
There isn't, there isn't enough being done, and I don't think the clubs will take offence to that. Maybe they don't have the people, they don't have the marketing department going, they only have one person, they don't have the staff. But all you need to do is really go to the community. And Auckland have shown us in the first year, they've actually gone out and embraced the football community, the football fraternity first, as Adelaide United did in the past, as Perth Glory have done, as Western Sydney Wanderers did. You know, so there is nothing, you don't need to reinvent the wheel or, you know, have rocket science, you know, apply to this. I think it's pretty simple. And I'm just disappointed that, you know, some of the clubs are not doing enough to get their crowds up.
Okay, guys, we've got to finish it tonight. Thank you for joining me. Kenny Taylor, about your system. We're going to have to fix it up. We're going to have to get a headset for you, a headset that makes that signal stronger. Kenny Wilson, thank you for joining me. And, of course, Angelo, direct from Naples, Italy. Thank you for coming and making time for night, guys. Thanks for joining us, all of you, everybody, tonight, guys. Thank you.